The blue marble of Earth turned slowly in the darkness of space, peaceful and quiet. But around it, invisible ships watched and waited. The galaxy was at war, and Earth sat right in the middle of it all. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the window of the orbital defense station, looking down at her home planet. She could see the lights of cities glowing like tiny stars on the night side. Somewhere down there, alien diplomats were meeting in Geneva trying to make peace. They had been trying for 3 years now. "Captain, we have movement at the edge of the system," called Lieutenant Morrison from his station. His voice was calm, but Elena could hear the tension underneath. Elena walked over to look at the screen. 2 dots appeared on the display, moving slowly toward Earth. One was red, one was blue. Red for the hegemony, blue for the alliance. The 2 sides that were tearing the galaxy apart with their endless war. "Are they staying in the safe corridors?" Elena asked. "Yes, ma'am. Both ships are following the neutral zone protocols." Elena nodded. This was how it worked. Ships from both sides could come to Earth, but only on certain paths. They had to announce themselves. They had to follow the rules. Earth was neutral ground, and everyone respected that. At least they had so far. The war had started 5 years ago. Nobody really remembered why anymore. Some old dispute about trade routes and mining rights. But it had grown bigger and bigger until half the galaxy was fighting. Thousands of worlds had chosen sides. Millions of beings had died. Earth had chosen differently. When the first alien ambassadors came asking for help, the United Nations had made a simple decision. They would help everyone, but they would not fight anyone. It had been hard at first. Both sides had tried to pressure Earth to join them. The hegemony promised power and territory. The alliance promised protection and friendship. Earth said no to both. Instead, Earth became something new. A place where both sides could send their wounded for medical care. A place where refugees could find safety. A place where peace talks could happen without fear of attack. Elena remembered the early days when she was just a lieutenant. Earth's planetary defense force had been small and weak. They had only a few ships and stations, but they had been enough to protect Earth's neutrality. Both sides respected the neutral zone because they needed it. "Another ship coming in," Morrison reported. "Alliance medical transport. They're requesting permission to dock at Medical Station 3. "Grant it," Elena said. "And send the usual welcome message." She walked back to the window. Down below, the morning sun was rising over Europe. In Geneva, the peace talks would be starting soon. Ambassador Chen from Earth would sit between the hegemony and alliance delegates, trying to find some common ground. It never seemed to work. The talks would go on for days or weeks, then break down. Someone would get angry. Someone would storm out. Then the fighting would start again somewhere else in the galaxy. But Earth kept trying. They had saved millions of lives in 3 years. Hegemony soldiers and alliance civilians slept in the same hospital wards on Earth. Their ships shared the same repair stations. Sometimes Elena wondered if this was the only place in the galaxy where the war had truly stopped. "Captain, incoming priority message from Geneva," Morrison called out. Elena walked over to read it. The message was from Ambassador Chen. The latest round of talks had failed again. The hegemony delegate had accused the alliance of attacking civilian targets. The alliance delegate had accused the hegemony of using banned weapons. Both sides had walked out. Elena sighed. It was always the same story. Neither side wanted to give up anything. Neither side wanted to admit they might be wrong. The war would continue and more people would die, but at least Earth would remain safe. The neutral zone protected them. Both sides needed Earth too much to attack it. Earth was the only place where their wounded could get proper medical care. Earth was the only place where they could meet to exchange prisoners or negotiate temporary truces. "Ma'am, we're getting reports of increased fighting in the Centauri sector," Morrison said, reading from his screen. 3 planets have been evacuated. "Refugee ships are already heading our way," Elena nodded. "Alert the refugee processing centers. Tell them to prepare for another wave." This was how it always went. Fighting would break out somewhere. Civilians would flee. Many of them would come to Earth. The one safe place in a dangerous galaxy. Earth would take them in, feed them, give them medical care, and help them find new homes when it was safe. The door to the bridge opened, and Colonel Martinez walked in. He was Elena's second in command, a veteran of Earth's pre-contact military. His face was serious. "Elena, we need to talk," he said quietly. They walked to Elena's office, a small room behind the bridge. Martinez closed the door and sat down heavily. "I just got word from intelligence," he said. "Both sides are getting frustrated with the stalemate. They're putting more pressure on their allies to contribute resources. Some of the neutrals are starting to crack." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying they might pressure Earth?" "I'm saying the neutrality that has protected us might not last forever. If one side thinks they're losing, they might try to force us to join them. Or they might try to stop us from helping the other side." Elena looked out the small window in her office. She could see one of the medical stations in the distance, a bright star against the black of space. Right now it was full of beings from both sides of the war getting treatment side by side. "We've made it clear from the beginning," Elena said. "Earth will not choose sides. We help everyone equally. But what if they don't give us a choice?" Martinez asked. "What if they force our hand?" Elena thought about this. Earth's military was small but well-trained. They had studied every ship design from both sides. They knew their strengths and weaknesses. But they had never been tested in real combat. Their job was to protect neutrality, not fight wars. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Elena said finally. "For now, we maintain our position. We help anyone who needs help. We stay neutral." Martinez nodded and left. Elena stayed in her office looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the war continued. Ships were fighting and dying. Planets were being invaded or abandoned. The galaxy was tearing itself apart. But here, around Earth, there was peace. Medical ships from both sides docked safely. Refugee transports brought families to safety. Diplomats met and talked, even if they couldn't agree. Elena thought about her daughter safe in school on Earth's surface. She thought about all the children down there, human and alien alike, playing together in the refugee centers. They didn't care about the war. They just wanted to live and grow up. That was what Earth was fighting to protect. Not territory or resources or pride. Just the simple right to live in peace. Elena stood up and walked back to the bridge. The war raged on across the galaxy, but Earth would remain neutral. They would continue to heal the wounded and shelter the homeless. They would continue to host peace talks even if they failed. It was the right thing to do. It was the human thing to do. And Elena hoped it would be enough to keep them safe. The stars watched silently as Earth turned in its orbit, a small island of peace in an ocean of war. But in the darkness between the stars, other ships were moving. Ships with different plans. Ships that had not learned to respect Earth's neutrality. The peaceful days were coming to an end. The alarm woke Tom Henderson at 4 a.m. He rolled out of bed in his farmhouse in Montana and looked out the window. The sky was still dark, but there was a strange orange glow coming from the south pasture. It looked like something was on fire. Tom grabbed his jacket and boots. His wife Sarah was already awake, holding their 10-year-old daughter Katie close. "What is it, Dad?" Katie asked, her voice small and scared. "Probably just lightning hit something," Tom said, trying to sound calm. "I'll go check." But as Tom stepped outside, he knew it wasn't lightning. The glow was too steady, too bright, and there was a sound like metal cooling after being heated. He had heard that sound before, back when he worked at the steel mill. Tom climbed into his pickup truck and drove toward the light. As he got closer, he could see it clearly. Something huge had crashed in his pasture. It was the size of a house, all black metal and strange angles. Parts of it were still glowing red hot. Tom stopped his truck and got out slowly. He had seen enough news reports to know what this was. An alien ship, but it wasn't supposed to be here. Alien ships only landed at the official zones near the big cities. They had rules about this. The ship was damaged badly. There were holes in its side and one wing was completely broken off. Smoke was coming from several places. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had been in a fight. Tom was about to get back in his truck and call the authorities when a section of the ship opened with a hiss. Light spilled out and figures started coming out. Big figures in dark armor carrying weapons. Tom had never seen hegemony soldiers before, but he had seen pictures. These aliens were tall and broad with gray skin and 4 arms. Their armor was black with red markings. They moved like they were hurt, but they still looked dangerous. One of them spotted Tom and shouted something in their language. Tom raised his hands to show he wasn't a threat, but the aliens were already moving toward him. One of them pointed a weapon at him, some kind of energy rifle that hummed with power. Tom tried to back away, but more aliens had come around his truck. They were surrounding him. One of them, with more decorations on his armor, stepped forward and spoke in broken English. You, human, this place is now hegemony territory. You will submit. Look, there's been a mistake, Tom said, trying to keep his voice steady. This is Earth, we're neutral. You're supposed to go to the designated landing zones. The alien commander tilted his head. Neutral? No, you give aid to Alliance dogs. You harbor their wounded. This makes you enemy. Tom felt his heart sink. These aliens didn't understand. Or maybe they didn't care. We help everyone, he said. Hegemony and Alliance both. We don't take sides. Lies, the commander said. Your neutrality is weakness. Now you will serve hegemony or you will die. More aliens were coming out of the ship now. Tom counted at least 20 of them. They were setting up some kind of equipment, barriers and weapons. They were planning to stay. My family, Tom said. My wife and daughter are in the house. They're not soldiers. They're just civilians. The commander looked toward Tom's farmhouse in the distance. Good. They will be examples. Others will see what happens to those who oppose hegemony. Tom felt fear turn to anger. They haven't opposed anyone. They're innocent. No one is innocent in war, the commander said. He gestured to his soldiers. Bring the humans. All of them. Tom wanted to run to warn Sarah and Katie, but the aliens were faster. They had vehicles now. Hover sleds that moved across the ground without touching it. Tom watched helplessly as they surrounded his house. Within an hour, Tom found himself sitting on the ground with his family and 12 of his neighbors. The aliens had gone to every house within 5 miles and brought everyone back to the crash site. Old man Peterson from the next farm over, the Martinez family with their 3 young children, even Mrs. Chen, who was 80 years old and could barely walk. The alien commander stood in front of them speaking into some kind of communication device. Tom couldn't understand the words, but he could guess what was happening. The aliens were calling their superiors, telling them they had secured a position on Earth. Dad, I'm scared, Katie whispered. Tom put his arm around her. It's going to be okay, sweetheart. Someone will come help us, but Tom wasn't sure that was true. His farm was 30 miles from the nearest town. It might be hours before anyone realized what had happened. The commander finished his call and walked over to the humans. My superiors are pleased, he said. Earth will learn what happens when they choose wrong side. We didn't choose any side, Tom said. We're neutral. The commander backhanded Tom across the face, sending him sprawling. Katie screamed and Sarah rushed to help him up. You speak when I tell you to speak, the commander said. You are prisoners now. Your government will negotiate for your release. They will give hegemony what we want or you will die. Tom tasted blood in his mouth. He looked around at his neighbors, at the fear in their faces. These people had never hurt anyone. They were farmers and shop owners and retired teachers. They had nothing to do with the Galactic War. But the aliens didn't care about that. Hours passed. The sun came up and more aliens emerged from the ship. They set up a defensive perimeter and started repairing their vessel. Tom could see that the ship was a warship, built for fighting. It must have been damaged in battle and crash-landed here by accident. Around noon, the aliens brought out a large communication device. The commander activated it, and suddenly a holographic image appeared above it. It showed the Earth flag and the United Nations symbol. People of Earth, the commander said, speaking into the device. I am Commander Thrak of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. Your planet has been harboring Alliance criminals and providing them aid. This ends now. The hologram shifted to show the captured humans. Tom saw his own face in the image, along with Sarah and Katie and all their neighbors. These humans are now hostages of the hegemony, Commander Thrak continued. Their lives depend on your cooperation. You will cease all aid to the Alliance. You will provide the hegemony with supplies and medical support. You will allow hegemony forces to establish a base on your world. Tom felt sick. The aliens were using them to force Earth to abandon its neutrality. If you refuse, Thrak said, we will execute 1 hostage every hour until you comply. To show we are serious, the first execution will happen now. Tom's blood turned to ice. Around him, the other hostages gasped and cried out. Children started crying. Thrak walked over to them and looked at each person carefully. His 4 eyes moved from face to face as if he was choosing which one to kill first. He stopped in front of old Mr. Peterson. You, Thrak said. You look weak, useless, a good example. 2 soldiers grabbed Peterson and dragged him away from the group. The old man didn't struggle. He just looked back at the others with sad eyes. Please, Tom said, standing up despite the weapons pointed at him. He's just an old farmer. He's never hurt anyone. Thrax smiled, showing sharp teeth. Exactly. That is what makes this effective. Your leaders will see that we kill even the innocent. They will know we are serious. Tom tried to move toward Peterson, but an alien soldier hit him with the butt of a rifle. He fell to his knees, dazed. The execution happened quickly. A single shot from an energy weapon. Mr. Peterson collapsed and didn't move again. Katie screamed. Sarah was crying. All around them, people were sobbing or staring in shock. Thrax walked back to the communication device. 1 hour, he said to the camera. Send your response or the next human dies. He cut the transmission and walked away, leaving the humans to grieve. Tom knelt there in the dirt, holding his family, staring at Peterson's body. The old man had grown the best tomatoes in the county. He had never even killed a bug if he could help it. And now he was dead because some alien commander wanted to make a point. Tom felt something change inside him. The fear was still there, but now there was something else. Something cold and hard and angry. These aliens had made a mistake. They thought Earth was weak because it chose neutrality. They thought humans would give up easily when threatened. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In orbit above Earth, Captain Elena Vasquez was receiving the same transmission that had gone out to the whole planet. She watched Peterson's execution with growing fury. Ma'am, Lieutenant Morrison said quietly, we're getting reports from governments worldwide. They're demanding immediate action. Elena's hands were clenched into fists. She had spent 3 years protecting Earth's neutrality. 3 years helping anyone who needed help. 3 years following the rules. The rules had just changed. Contact all units, Elena said, her voice deadly calm. Prepare for combat operations. These aliens want to see what humans do when they're pushed too far. She paused, still staring at the screen where Peterson's body lay in the Montana dirt. They're about to find out. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the war room deep inside the orbital defense station. Every screen around her showed different views of the Montana farmland where the aliens held their hostages. Satellite images, drone footage, thermal readings, all of it painted the same picture. 15 humans surrounded by 20 heavily armed hegemony soldiers. Status report, Elena said to Colonel Martinez, who had been coordinating the response for the past 6 hours. The President has called an emergency session of the UN Security Council, Martinez said, but that could take days. The aliens are demanding an answer in, he checked his watch, 43 minutes. Elena nodded grimly. She had watched the second execution an hour ago. Mrs. Chen, the 80-year-old grandmother who had survived 3 wars on Earth before the aliens ever came, shot down like an animal to make a point. What about official channels? Elena asked. Can we reach the hegemony command? We tried. They're claiming this Commander Thrax is acting without orders. They say they'll look into it, but that could take weeks. Elena slammed her fist on the table. People are dying every hour. We don't have weeks. Lieutenant Morrison looked up from his station. Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the surface. The main screen lit up with the image of the crash site. Commander Thrax stood in front of the camera again. His forearms crossed over his armored chest. Behind him, the remaining hostages sat in the dirt guarded by alien soldiers. People of Earth, Thrax said. 2 of your citizens are dead because you refuse to cooperate. You have 30 minutes to respond to our demands or the next execution will be a child. The camera moved to show little Katie Henderson, only 10 years old, sitting next to her parents. Her face was streaked with tears. Elena felt something break inside her chest. She had joined the Planetary Defense Force to protect Earth and its people. For 3 years, she had done that by following the rules, by maintaining neutrality, by avoiding conflict. But neutrality meant nothing when children were about to die. Ma'am, Morrison said quietly, we're getting calls from world leaders. They want to know what options we have. Elena looked around the room at her officers. These were good people, trained soldiers who had volunteered to defend their world. For 3 years, they had been peacekeepers. Today, they would have to become something else. What's our tactical assessment? Elena asked. Major Park, the tactical officer, pulled up a holographic display of the crash site. 20 hegemony soldiers, standard battle armor, and energy weapons. Their ship is damaged but still has defensive systems online. The hostages are in the center of their perimeter, making any direct assault extremely risky. Civilian casualties? Elena asked. With a conventional assault? Probably all of them. The aliens have made it clear they'll kill the hostages rather than surrender. Elena studied the tactical display. The alien positions were well planned and heavily defended. A frontal assault would be suicide for the hostages, but humans had always been good at finding unconventional solutions to impossible problems. What assets do we have in the area? Elena asked. The Montana National Guard has units 50 miles away, but they don't have equipment designed to fight aliens. The nearest regular military base is 300 miles out. Elena thought for a moment. What about local resources? Civilian assets we could use? Martinez frowned. Ma'am, we can't ask civilians to fight alien soldiers. I'm not talking about fighting, Elena said. I'm talking about distraction, confusion, something to give us an opening. She turned to Morrison. Contact every local authority within 100 miles. Police, fire departments, emergency services. Also reach out to private contractors. Construction companies, mining operations, anyone with heavy equipment. What are you planning? Martinez asked. Elena smiled grimly. Something the hegemony won't expect. They think in terms of military solutions because they're a military society, but humans are more creative than that. 20 minutes later, Elena was aboard a stealth dropship heading for Earth's surface. With her were 12 members of Earth's Special Operations Team, the best soldiers the Planetary Defense Force had. They were armed with the most advanced human weapons available, gear designed to fight alien technology. But the real key to Elena's plan wasn't military hardware. It was already in motion on the ground below. Tom Henderson sat in the dirt with his family, watching the alien soldiers pace around their perimeter. He could hear vehicles in the distance getting closer. The aliens had heard them too. Several soldiers were pointing their weapons toward the sounds. Commander Thrak was speaking into his communicator, probably calling for instructions. Tom could see that the alien was getting nervous. This wasn't going according to his plan. The sounds were coming from all directions now. Engines, machinery, the rumble of heavy vehicles. It sounded like half of Montana was driving toward the crash site. Tom smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. He recognized some of those engine sounds. That was definitely Jake Morrison's bulldozer. And that rumbling had to be the mining trucks from the copper operation 20 miles north. The aliens were looking around in confusion. Their sensors were picking up dozens of vehicles approaching from every direction, but they couldn't tell what kind or how many people were in them. What is happening? Thrak demanded, grabbing Tom by the shirt and pulling him to his feet. Sounds like the neighbors are coming to visit, Tom said calmly. Thrak backhanded him again, but Tom didn't fall this time. He just wiped the blood from his mouth and smiled. The first vehicle came into view over a hill to the east. It was indeed Jake's bulldozer, its massive blade gleaming in the afternoon sun. Behind it came a convoy of pickup trucks, construction vehicles, and farm equipment. From the west came the mining trucks, huge vehicles designed to carry tons of ore. From the north came fire trucks and ambulances, their sirens wailing. From the south came more farm vehicles, combines, and tractors and cattle trucks. Thrak was shouting orders to his soldiers, trying to figure out which direction the real threat would come from. But that was the beauty of it. There was no real threat, just a lot of very loud, very visible civilians making as much noise and confusion as possible. That's when Elena's dropship landed behind the crashed alien vessel. The stealth technology kept it invisible to alien sensors until it was already on the ground. 12 human soldiers emerged silently, moving through the tall grass toward the alien perimeter. Elena had studied hegemony tactics for 3 years. She knew how they thought, how they fought. They were disciplined and well-trained, but they followed predictable patterns. They expected their enemies to attack the strongest point of their defenses, because that's how hegemony soldiers would do it. Humans were different. Humans attacked where it hurt the most. Elena's team didn't go for the alien soldiers. They went for the alien ship. The hegemony vessel was damaged but still functional. Its computer systems controlled the defensive barriers that protected the alien perimeter. Its communication array was sending signals to the hegemony fleet. Most importantly, its medical bay was keeping several wounded alien soldiers alive. Elena's team planted explosives on all of these systems. Meanwhile, the civilian convoy was getting closer. The aliens were becoming more agitated, unsure whether to open fire on what appeared to be unarmed vehicles. Thrak was screaming into his communicator, demanding instructions from his superiors. That's when Elena triggered the explosives. The alien ship systems shut down in a cascade of sparks and smoke. The defensive barriers flickered and died. The communication array went silent, and in the medical bay, life support systems began to fail. Thrak spun around to see what had happened to his ship. That moment of distraction was all Elena needed. The human soldiers had positioned themselves around the alien perimeter while the aliens were focused on the approaching vehicles. Now they opened fire with precision shots targeting alien weapons and equipment rather than the soldiers themselves. Elena didn't want to kill the aliens if she could avoid it. Earth was still officially neutral, and these soldiers were technically refugees from a battle. But she would do whatever it took to save the hostages. The alien soldiers, suddenly finding themselves under attack from an unexpected direction, while surrounded by loud civilian vehicles, did exactly what Elena had hoped they would do. They panicked. Hegemony soldiers were trained to fight organized military units with predictable tactics. They weren't prepared for an enemy that attacked their ship while civilians drove bulldozers at their positions, and human soldiers fired from concealment. Elena's team moved through the chaos like ghosts, using non-lethal weapons to disable alien soldiers one by one. Stun grenades, electromagnetic pulse devices, neural scramblers designed to interfere with alien nervous systems. Within 10 minutes, it was over. Thrak found himself on his knees, his weapons gone, his soldiers unconscious or disarmed around him. The human hostages were being led to safety by Elena's team. The civilian vehicles had formed a protective circle around the area. Elena walked up to Thrak and removed her helmet. The alien commander looked up at her with all four of his eyes, confusion and anger warring on his face. "How?" he asked. "We had superior weapons, superior position, superior numbers." Elena smiled coldly. "You made two mistakes," she said. "First, you thought neutral meant weak. Second, you hurt our people." She gestured to the chaos around them, to High Admiral Zefek of the Hegemony. Third Fleet received the news of Commander Thrak's defeat, while dining in his command ship's luxurious quarters. The meal was expensive, imported from the conquered worlds of the Outer Rim. Zefek barely looked up from his plate when his aide delivered the report. "The humans attacked our soldiers?" Zefek asked, cutting another piece of his rare meat. "How many ships did they use?" "No ships, sir," the aide replied nervously. "It appears to have been a ground operation. 12 soldiers and some civilian vehicles." Zefek stopped chewing. 12 soldiers? "Yes, sir, plus local humans with construction equipment and farm vehicles." Zefek set down his knife and fork. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered 17 star systems and destroyed countless enemy fleets. He had never heard of anything so ridiculous. 20 of our best soldiers defeated by farmers, he said slowly. "The humans used unconventional tactics, sir. They attacked the ship rather than engaging our forces directly. They coordinated civilian distractions with military precision. Our soldiers were unprepared for such methods." Zefek stood up from his table, his forearms moving to clasp behind his back. This was worse than a military defeat. This was humiliation. The other alien races would hear about this. They would think the hegemony was weak. "Send a message to the hegemony high command," Zefek ordered. "I am taking my fleet to Earth. We will show these humans what happens when they attack hegemony forces." "Sir," the aide said carefully, "Earth is supposed to be neutral territory. The Galactic Council has rules about—" "The humans broke those rules when they attacked our people," Zefek snapped. "They want war? We will give them war." Across the galaxy, Alliance Admiral Tavara was having a similar conversation aboard her flagship. The tall, blue-skinned alien paced back and forth in her command center, reading the reports from her intelligence officers. "The humans defeated a hegemony force?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Yes, Admiral. They rescued the hostages and captured the hegemony soldiers. No human casualties in the rescue operation." Tavara nodded slowly. This was interesting news. For 3 years, Earth had maintained strict neutrality, helping both sides equally. The Alliance had respected this even though they would have preferred human support against the hegemony. But now things had changed. The hegemony had attacked human civilians. Earth had responded with force. Perhaps this was the opportunity the Alliance had been waiting for. "Prepare a diplomatic message to Earth," Tavara ordered. "Offer them our protection in exchange for a formal alliance. They will need our help when the hegemony retaliates." Her aide looked uncertain. "Admiral, what if the humans refuse?" "They have been very stubborn about their neutrality." Tavara smiled, showing sharp teeth. Then we make it clear that they need us. A few convenient hegemony raids near Earth space should convince them to accept our protection. Neither the hegemony nor the Alliance understood what they were dealing with. They saw Earth's rescue operation as either a humiliating defeat to be avenged or a sign of weakness to be exploited. They both made the same mistake that Commander Thrak had made. They underestimated humans. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the rebuilt command center of Earth's primary defense station. Around her, dozens of technicians worked frantically to prepare for what was coming. The intelligence reports were clear. Both alien fleets were moving toward Earth. Admiral Zefek's third fleet will arrive in 18 hours, reported Commander Singh, Elena's new intelligence chief. 42 warships, including 6 dreadnoughts. They're not trying to hide their approach. And the Alliance? Elena asked. Admiral Tavara's forces are hanging back, probably waiting to see what happens. But they're positioning themselves to intervene if they think it will benefit them. Elena nodded grimly. She had been promoted to admiral after the Montana rescue, but the rank felt heavy on her shoulders. 3 years of peace were about to end, and the responsibility for what came next rested with her. Status of our defenses? She asked. Colonel Martinez, now her second in command, activated a holographic display of Earth's orbital space. All defense platforms are online and armed. We've retrofitted civilian stations with military equipment. The moon bases are operational. Elena studied the display. Earth's defenses looked impressive on the screen, but she knew the truth. They had been designed to protect against raiders and pirates, not a full fleet assault. Against 42 hegemony warships, they would last maybe an hour. But Elena had spent the last week doing more than just preparing defenses. She had been studying the enemy. Analysis of hegemony fleet composition, she asked. Major Park brought up detailed files on each enemy ship. Typical hegemony formation. Heavy dreadnoughts in the center, cruisers on the flanks, destroyers screening the advance. They rely on overwhelming firepower and frontal assault. Weaknesses. Their ships are heavily armored but not very maneuverable. They expect their enemies to meet them in direct combat. Their command structure is rigid. If you take out the flagship, the rest of the fleet becomes confused. Elena smiled. So they're expecting us to fight them the same way everyone else does, ma'am? They think we'll meet them in space with our own fleet, try to match them ship for ship. That's how the Alliance fights them. That's how everyone fights them. Elena walked over to another display, this one showing Earth itself. The blue and green planet turned slowly, peaceful and beautiful. But hidden beneath that peaceful appearance was something the aliens had never encountered before. Humans don't fight fair, Elena said quietly. We never have. When someone bigger and stronger threatens us, we don't try to outmuscle them. We get creative, she turned to her staff. Begin Operation Hornet's Nest. Admiral Zefek stood on the bridge of his flagship as the hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Before him spread the human home system in all its glory, the bright yellow star, the varied planets, and the small blue world that had dared to defy the hegemony. Sensor report, Zefek ordered. Multiple defensive platforms around the planet, his tactical officer reported. Approximately 40 installations. Several moon bases. No sign of a defensive fleet, Zefek frowned. No ships? None detected, sir. The humans appear to be relying entirely on fixed defenses. This was disappointing. Zefek had been hoping for a proper space battle, something to wash away the humiliation of Thrak's defeat. Instead, the humans were cowering behind their orbital forts like frightened children. Very well, Zefek said. Form attack formation. We will destroy their defenses and then bombard their cities until they surrender. The hegemony fleet moved forward in perfect formation, a wall of black metal and bristling weapons. They had done this 100 times before on 100 different worlds. The pattern was always the same. Overwhelming force, quick victory, absolute dominance. Range to defensive platforms? Zefek asked. 2 minutes to optimal firing range. Sir? Prepare to open fire on my command. That's when the asteroid started moving. At first, the hegemony sensors couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter was shifting, rocks changing course and accelerating toward the fleet. It had to be some kind of sensor malfunction. Then the first asteroid hit. It wasn't very big, maybe 50 meters across, but it was moving at incredible speed, and it struck the hegemony cruiser Dominator amidships. The ship's shields flared and held, but the impact sent shockwaves through the entire vessel. What was that? Zefek demanded. Before his tactical officer could answer, more asteroids came screaming in from different directions. Hundreds of them, all moving faster than any natural object should move. "They're artificial," the tactical officer shouted. "The asteroids have been fitted with engines and guidance systems." Zefek stared in disbelief as his fleet came under bombardment from weaponized space rocks. Who would think of such a thing? Who would spend the time and resources to turn asteroids into missiles? Humans, apparently. The asteroid bombardment was just the beginning. As the hegemony fleet tried to adjust their formation to deal with the incoming rocks, new threats appeared from unexpected directions. Cargo ships emerged from behind the moon, except they weren't carrying cargo anymore. They had been converted into missile platforms, their holds packed with human-made torpedoes. The ships looked harmless, like civilian freighters, until they opened fire. From the other side of the system came what looked like a small fleet of human vessels. Zefek ordered his ships to engage them, only to discover that half of them were decoys, sophisticated holograms projected by hidden satellites. The real ships were somewhere else entirely, hitting his flanks while his forces fired at empty space. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "the human defense platforms are opening fire." But even the defense platforms weren't what they seemed. Instead of the heavy energy weapons Zefek expected, they launched swarms of small, fast-moving drones. Each drone was tiny, barely bigger than a fighter, but they moved in coordinated patterns that made them almost impossible to target. Worse, the drones weren't trying to destroy hegemony ships. They were attaching themselves to the hull and drilling through the armor with industrial cutting tools. Mining acquisitions of news of Admiral Zefek's defeat spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. On 1,000 worlds, in 100 fleets across the vast networks of interstellar communication, the same impossible story was told and retold. Earth had destroyed a hegemony battle fleet without losing a single ship. In the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, representatives from dozens of species gathered in emergency session. The circular hall buzzed with conversation in 100 different languages, but all of them were discussing the same thing. Ambassador Keth of the Vorthon Republic stood at his podium, his crystalline features reflecting the chamber's lights. "The implications are clear," he said in his ringing voice. "If Earth can defeat the hegemony so easily, the balance of power in the galaxy has fundamentally shifted." From across the chamber, Ambassador Yila of the Centauri Federation raised her tentacled arm. "We should be celebrating. Earth has shown that the hegemony can be beaten. Their reign of terror is over." "And replaced by what?" asked Ambassador Drock of the Mining Consortium, his rocky features set in what might have been a frown. "Human expansion. Human dominance? At least we knew what to expect from the hegemony." The debate continued for hours, but Admiral Elena Vasquez, watching from Earth, wasn't interested in their political arguments. She had more immediate concerns. Intelligence reports show both the hegemony and alliance are mobilizing larger fleets. Colonel Martinez reported from his station. "It looks like they're planning a joint operation." Elena frowned. "Joint operation? They've been fighting each other for 5 years. Apparently, the threat of human military capability is more important than their war with each other. We're seeing unprecedented cooperation between their forces." Elena walked to the main display, which showed the current positions of alien fleets throughout local space. The hegemony was gathering ships from 3 sectors. The alliance was doing the same. Both forces were larger than anything Earth had faced before. "How long until they arrive?" Elena asked. "Best estimate is 2 weeks for the first wave, 4 weeks for their full combined fleet." Elena nodded slowly. Earth had won one battle through surprise and unconventional tactics. But the aliens would be prepared now. They would come with overwhelming force and careful planning. They would not underestimate humans again. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Commander Park spoke up from the communications station. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Elena walked over to view the message. It was from Ambassador Chen, Earth's representative to the Council. His face was grim. "Elena," Chen said, "the Council is demanding that Earth explain its actions and submit to a formal investigation of the fleet engagement. They're also requesting that we surrender all captured hegemony personnel and technology for neutral evaluation." Elena felt her temper rising. For 3 years, Earth had followed every rule, respected every treaty, bent over backward to maintain peace. And now, When they defended themselves against unprovoked attack, the galaxy wanted to put them on trial. There's more, Chen continued. Several council members are suggesting that Earth's military capabilities pose a threat to galactic stability. There's talk of sanctions, trade embargoes, even a blockade to contain human expansion. Elena turned off the transmission and looked around at her staff. These were good people who had devoted their lives to protecting Earth and maintaining peace. They deserved better than to be treated like criminals for defending their home. New orders, Elena said quietly. Begin Operation Clean Slate. Martinez looked at her with concern. Ma'am, Clean Slate is a theoretical contingency plan. Are you sure? The galaxy has made its position clear, Elena replied. They see us as a threat to be contained. They're mobilizing military forces against us. They want to investigate us like criminals. She walked back to the main display, looking at the positions of alien fleets and bases throughout the local sectors. Fine, she said. If they want to see what a real threat looks like, we'll show them. Operation Clean Slate had been developed during Elena's first year as a captain, back when Earth was still establishing its neutrality. It was a worst-case scenario plan, something to use if diplomacy failed completely and Earth faced total war. The plan was simple in concept but devastating in execution. Eliminate every military threat within 50 light-years of Earth. Within hours, human ships were moving throughout the local sector. But these weren't the obvious military vessels that other species expected. Elena had learned from the fleet battle that humanity's greatest advantage was the enemy's assumptions about how wars should be fought. The first target was the hegemony staging area at Wolf 359. Admiral Tak had assembled 30 ships there, preparing for the assault on Earth. His fleet was hidden behind the system's asteroid field, using the rocks as cover from long-range sensors. What Tak didn't know was that humans had been mining those asteroids for 2 years. The explosions, when they came, were beautiful from a distance. Carefully placed charges turned the entire asteroid field into a debris cloud, traveling at relativistic speeds. The hegemony fleet had perhaps 30 seconds to realize what was happening before the rocks tore their ships apart. No human ships were detected in the area. Earth's official position was that it must have been a terrible mining accident. The second target was the Alliance forward base at Proxima Centauri. Admiral Tak had positioned her fleet there to observe Earth's defenses and plan their own approach. The base was heavily shielded and well defended, practically invisible to normal sensors. But humans had been studying alien technology for 3 years. They knew how the shields worked. More importantly, they knew how to make them fail. The virus was delivered by a single small probe that looked like space debris. It infiltrated the base's computer systems and systematically shut down every defensive system, one by one. When the shields failed, the base was exposed to the system's stellar radiation. The Alliance claimed it was a computer malfunction. Earth expressed sympathy for the tragic loss of life. Similar accidents befell alien installations throughout the sector. A hegemony supply depot suffered a reactor overload. An Alliance communication relay was destroyed by a micrometeorite shower that came from the exact direction of an abandoned human mining operation. A neutral trading post that had been sharing intelligence with both sides was consumed by a solar flare that somehow affected only that one location. Within a week, every major alien military presence within 50 light-years of Earth had been eliminated. The galaxy was beginning to understand that they were dealing with something new. Ambassador. Chen stood before the Galactic Council once again, but this time the chamber was much quieter. The representatives who had been demanding investigations and sanctions now sat in stunned silence. The Earth government deeply regrets the recent series of industrial accidents and natural disasters that have affected our neighbors, Chen said calmly. We stand ready to provide humanitarian aid to any species that has suffered losses. Ambassador Keth of the Vorthan Republic leaned forward. Ambassador Chen, surely you don't expect us to believe that all of these incidents were coincidental. Chen's expression didn't change. Are you suggesting that Earth is somehow responsible for solar flares and reactor malfunctions? That would require capabilities far beyond what any species possesses. That was the beauty of Elena's strategy. Every attack had used the aliens' own technology against them, or had appeared to be a natural disaster. There was no proof of human involvement. No witnesses who survived to testify. What Earth wants, Chen continued, is very simple. We want to be left alone. We want the fighting in our region of space to stop. We want to return to our role as a neutral mediator. Ambassador Yila of the Centauri Federation spoke up. But the war between the hegemony and alliance is over, Chen interrupted. Effective immediately. A murmur ran through the chamber. Chen waited for it to die down before continuing. Earth is announcing a new policy regarding our local space. Any military vessel from any species that enters our sphere of influence without permission will be turned away. Any act of aggression within 50 light-years of Earth will be met with immediate response. You're establishing a sphere of control, Ambassador Drock said slowly. You're claiming sovereignty over dozens of star systems. We're establishing a peace zone, Chen corrected. Species within our sphere are free to govern themselves as they choose. Trade will continue. Cultural exchange will continue. But military conflicts will not be tolerated. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted about sovereignty and galactic law and the rights of species to defend themselves. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down. The alternative, he said quietly, is that Earth will be forced to take more active measures to ensure our security. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Earth had just demonstrated that they could eliminate any military threat without warning, without detection, without leaving evidence. Ambassador Keth stood slowly. And if we refuse to accept this? Peace zone? Chen smiled politely. Then I suggest you review the recent industrial accident reports from Wolf 359 and Proxima Centauri. Earth's engineering capabilities are quite advanced. One by one, the alien representatives began to understand their new reality.